I am really excited today because I am going to be interviewing Mary Sheila Gonella. She is a nutritionist and a holistic practitioner, and she has an amazing business. She's written books. I'm going to have her talk to you all about her, but this is near and dear to my heart, and this is so pivotal for what we do in Planted Places with our Planted membership. And as everybody knows, I've been going live frequently this week, and we have been talking about our open cart with the Planted membership. And it's all about our 3 pillars: get planted, get nourished, and get grounded. And today is all about get nourished. And that's because we're teaching you how to grow those leafy greens and herbs, all organic in living soil at home in small places. And it's get nourished is all about, okay, it's one thing to grow it, and it's another thing to actually consume that and put that into your body and really, really benefit from that. So let's go ahead and turn over to Mary Sheila. And I wanted to first just start and tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into your current line of expertise and all of that.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
And I love, love, love what you are doing, and it's really cool. Um, I think we have a similar mission. And, it's funny because my journey to being a health practitioner really, as many people who are in my shoes, it was their own journey that got them there. And I literally kind of grew up with a lot of antibiotics, and which
Mhm.
completely messed up my gut microbiome and my adrenals, and I was sick a lot as a kid. And when I went off to college, I moved to Sonoma County and was blown away by its bounty, really. And the farming agricultural community just was like, oh, hey, these are my people.
Yeah,
And so
everywhere
I
there.
started working on CSA farms. And when I graduated college, I moved out to an organic farm that's actually right down the street from where I live now. And completely had a different relationship to food. It wasn't in a package. I wasn't counting calories or whatever and fat and all that sad stuff us
Yeah.
young American women do. And I started learning how to grow food and farm, and it was just a totally different relationship to eat the food, right from there, and watching the kids do that. And so it really was through farming, then through learning how to cook, then through learning how to heal myself with food, and then wanting to teach other people how to do that and learn everything I could to share the good word of nutrition and health and how to get healthy, and how food is our biggest ally, and it's our medicine, and we do it every single day. And we truly are what we eat, but we're also what we assimilate and all that good stuff. So it really all kind of came together for me.
And you know what? I love that. It's so interesting. Our stories are actually really similar. But what it's interesting about yours is it sounds like the gardening, the farming is actually what brought you into this world, which
Mhm.
is, it's so interesting because my story is I love to garden and do the ornamental, and I was really intimidated to do the other. And my health, I had, I think this is a common female thing. I think I had IBS for many years, and I had a nutritionist friend who did tell me you should start eating leafy greens. You need to kind of eat, and I thought I was being good because I eat salad. She's like, no, you need to eat organic, fresh. You need to do that. And so and it was probably a 2 to 3 year process, but I completely changed my microbiome as a result of. At first, I had to cook them, stir fry, because she was like, you brought, because I couldn't really digest lettuce, believe it or not, it was hard. And then now it's absolutely no problem. And in that process is when I realized, okay, I really want to start learning how to actually grow my own food, because and it was also at the same time I had a business, and I had a client who wanted to do it on a wall, and we were doing living walls, and I thought, let's figure that out, because that is the ultimate, right? Kind of like what I've got right behind me. But it's interesting, right, how your health kind of knocks on your door and tells you, yeah, pay attention. Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about then kind of your practice and what you do. And of course, I'm going to want to get into the role leafy greens and herbs really play in this. But let's talk a little bit first about, because you do some really interesting courses and such.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I am trained as a nutrition consultant, and so I'm, board certified in holistic nutrition, and I'm also trained in Ayurveda, which is sort of going to this deep ancestral place and peeling the onion even deeper and connecting our emotional body to, the elements. And so that's been a really wonderful way to like interpret nutrition and health and teach
Yeah,
it.
talk about that a little bit, because I actually have not, I've heard of it, but I don't know so much about it. I'd love to hear about it. Yeah.
Well, you'll love it actually
Yeah.
because of how I'll describe it. But Ayurveda is a science of medicine from India, and it is an elemental science. So, meaning we are just like, our outside environment, we are made of the elements, right? We have
Right.
ether and air, fire, water, and earth. And that is what makes us up, right? So, like the planet Earth, have 70% water in our own bodies, right? We
Yeah.
have fire. We're able to, take our food and metabolize it and turn it into us. And so like for you, cooking your food was better then because you might not have had as strong of digestive fire at that time, right? And
Right.
we have, air, and we have space for things to move through, and it's all housed in our body. So and Ayurveda also really teaches that most disease states or conditions really start on an emotional level, and then they sort of get stuck in the body. So it's
Yeah.
very it's just a really beautiful type of healing that's very based on self-care,
And
based
that's interesting when you say it starts with an emotion, because of course the first thing my brain goes to is stress, right? There's so much link right between autoimmune and stress.
on.
And that sounds like that's kind of the root of what you're talking about there.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Stress, and it might be like, stress because we're fearful or, we're angry, right? So there's all these different emotions wrapped up in that. And
Hmm.
so, and that plays a big role. And so, and self-care in this busy world is really critical. And it can mean many things, it's sort of a cliche way to say things now, but it really can mean many things. It can be that, cooking for yourself, cooking more greens for yourself, than when you thought, well, no, I'm fine. I eat a salad, whatever. And so the Ayurveda has been amazing. I was a teacher at Bowman College, which is a holistic nutrition program for many years. And that was really great because, I hadn't had to dive in and learn so many different things to be able to teach it and articulate it.
Right.
I work in a medical clinic part-time, doing consulting and teaching classes. And, I've kind of worked with a lot of different people. I've taught a lot with kids in elementary and middle school. And right now I focus a lot on blood sugar, and I also focus a lot on autoimmune. I just recently finished training with Dr. Terry Walls, just because, autoimmune is sort of the, I don't know, in some ways for me, it's kind of like the pinnacle, of, it's like, wow, our body is not like protecting and keeping ourselves safe. It's actually like attacking ourselves.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
how can we, calm that immune system down and stop the damage and, and heal? And it is food. It's what we eat. It's also how we eat and how we care for ourselves, and, kind of tapping into that more resilience and that rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system.
Okay, so it's so beautiful what you just said, those three comments, because it made me think of, okay, with Planet Places, it's the planet, get nourished, get grounded. And I was like, wow, it's what we eat, kind of how are we eating that, and then kind of how we take care of ourselves. Like that's interesting because, get grounded, of course, is how do you take care of yourself? Gardening, cooking and gardening, I think, are those two activities that are really, I mean, they're kind of like soul satisfying, right? You do it, and it's like, in our busy life, a lot of times you just don't want to take time for it. But then when you do, you realize this is worth it. This is how I take care of myself. It's so important.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah,
and I just have to say, like, to see that wall behind you, your living wall, your beautiful greens, like, I mean, you're caring for your food, you're caring
yeah,
for your food before it comes into you. And, that's one of the things I say a lot. It's like, no matter, even if you don't have one of those beautiful living walls that you can like actually care for your greens before you eat them and consume them, and before they become you,
yeah.
like we all work really hard for our food,
Hmm.
whether it's, earning money to pay for and purchase our food, or, gardening and planting our own food, or whoever else, like
Yeah,
the land, the farmer, the tractor drivers, or like
right.
truckers moving our food across. Like, I mean, look how hard we work for our food on so
Yes.
many levels. And like, wow, to really honor that. right?
It's important. No, I know, and it's true. And then of course, we won't get into it right now, but like this, there's so much now information out there, which I'm so glad they've brought to the forefront of, what we've been doing historically, traditionally in the non-organic farming and what it's done, and the link it has to climate change and, soil, we grow in living soil because a big part of that is where the nutrition is. But I also think there's a bigger message there, which is it sequesters carbon. I mean, soil, it takes in the carbon dioxide, and 40% of that carbon goes into the roots, and it's stored in the microbial activity in there. I mean, it's sort of fascinating. And so when you don't farm, you're throwing pesticides and you're tilling the soil, you're kind of, you're destroying that microbial activity. And as a result, the ability for that land to sequester carbon has gone away. So it's got this global impact too, that is now people are starting to talk about, which I think is fascinating. So I could go on, we could go in so many different directions there, but I want to go back to autoimmune real quick because, that is so much on the rise. It's interesting, you hear these things, oh, is it hereditary? Is it not? And I'm curious when you say, kind of what you do eat, can impact the autoimmune, and talk a little bit about that. How do we think about that?
Yeah. I think a big part of that and this is sort of another like movement in the nutrition world is
Mm.
like our ancestral eating. And really remembering how our ancestors like brought food to the forefront. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we should all be just eating like cave men and women.
Yeah.
But it does mean that it's about properly preparing our foods, right? It's
Mhm.
about that idea that like, wow, my digestive fire is not that strong. I've got IBS. Like it's going to be
Mhm.
easier for me to cook my greens rather than just have them raw in salads. And sometimes too much raw isn't good for the thyroid gland. And so the same thing goes like when we're talking about autoimmune and
Mhm.
eating for autoimmune, there is a mindfulness piece that plays a role like of being calm and in our
Mhm.
parasympathetic, which is our rest and digest nervous system when we're eating. And then
Mhm.
the other piece is going to be properly preparing our foods. We didn't just at 10,000 years ago when agriculture began, we didn't take wheat berries and put them through a mill and turn them into tortillas and eat them. The
Yeah.
only way we could really digest them was when we soaked them and sprouted them and fermented them
Mhm.
naturally with just even the air, the microbes in the air. And it began to break down the hard to digest proteins and glutens, all the different gliadins
Yeah.
and the carbs. And it just started to break everything down. So it was so much easier to digest. And the same thing with dairy. Dairy, it was a way to preserve the dairy, but it was also a way to make it more digestible. So if we're
Mhm.
going to eat those foods, and what we find is there's some foods that most of them being seeds, right? So
Mhm.
grains, beans, nuts, and seeds, they're seeds. They're all seeds. And their whole purpose in life is not to be eaten by us, but to become the next generation, right? To become an
Right.
almond tree or a walnut tree or, a bean sprout or, right? And
Yeah.
so when we, like, just like us as parents, right? We say, I would do anything to protect my children. Well, plants do the same thing. They put protections in their offspring. And
Mm.
those protections are what we call anti-nutrients like lectins and phytates and oxalates. And all of those anti-nutrients can be irritating to a gut. So if we've been running around really stressed, high
Mhm.
stress, high cortisol is going to be like a thinner lining of our gut, which, we can kind of talk about the gut as it's like, in the whole microbial gut, it's like our own inner soil, right? And
Mhm.
it's that
Right.
soil that we need to tend to, right? We need to tend to the soil in our plants so that they have everything they need to grow healthy, but we also have to tend to our own. And the more stressed we're running around or kind of deficient foods that we're eating, the thinner that lining is and the more susceptible the immune system is to being kind of triggered by those anti-nutrients. And then the immune system starts to come out and send out molecules that are inflammatory, but it's protective. So, and then over time, it might just lose tolerance to what it's supposed to be going after versus what it's truly going after when it starts going after us. So, a big part of healing with food is making sure we're eating the foods that are the best for us and our situation, our condition, but ultimately also properly preparing our foods, right?
Interesting. God, that I'm just sitting here. I am the student right now. I am learning so much about what you're saying because I'm, of course, as everybody will do, right? You apply it to your own personal situation and go, okay, that's so interesting. And just you describing, the stress, the cortisol that would potentially be in your body, how that thins out your digestive tract, and then not only is it compromised, is the ability for it to absorb the nutrition that is in that food, is that also compromised as well? That makes me think
Yeah,
that.
because I mean,
Yeah.
if you think about like your gut lining, you think of
Hmm.
it as a plumbing, you don't want to have any leaks in your plumbing, right? What happens?
Right.
You're going to get mold and, water's going to come out everywhere. Well, it's just like our gut. We don't want leaks in our plumbing. And that what's lining our plumbing is like these hair-like projections. We call them cilia. And
Yep.
what's being housed on that cilia are enzymes that do that final split to let things in. Now, if my hair-like projections are all inflamed and maybe atrophied and not even there because they're not healthy, well, where are those enzymes going to live? And and then so I can't break everything down. It might give me symptoms of like the IBS, like you talked about, and then over time that gut
Mhm.
wall degrades, and then things that are bigger that aren't supposed to can get out, and that's what we call leaky gut.
Oh, interesting. That's fascinating. So it's interesting how you said like even raw. So is raw food? Talk a little bit about, because you mentioned earlier too, fermenting. So like the proper preparation of, and I noticed that on your website too, you do talk about fermentation. I'm like, I got to take one of those classes. But we grow peppers and tomatoes, and we grow a lot of different things. And so what is the fermentation process doing as well in terms of, obviously you always hear fermentation and probiotics, but how, yeah, talk about that, because that's, I
Yeah.
think, interesting
So,
now.
there's millions and billions of microbes in the soil, and especially even on the plants that we're eating. And so in fermentation, what we're doing is we are sort of harnessing those beneficial microbes, and we're giving them a safe anaerobic place to thrive. And
Okay.
they are eating the fibers and sugars from the plants themselves in
Yeah.
this anaerobic medium, and growing even more abundant. So that but what they're doing is they're also breaking down whatever matter they're eating, whether it's like, if it's dairy or if it's plants like a sauerkraut or something. They're breaking down the plants and kind of liberating some of the
Mhm.
B vitamins and the vitamin C and
Mhm.
some of the other minerals, so that when we go to eat that sauerkraut, it we're going to get more from it because it's already pre-broken down. And there's going to be a lot of lactic acid, so it's going to help kind of regulate and support the pH, the natural pH in the GI tract, and it's going to feed and nourish the microbiome as it passes through. And
Mhm.
we're going to be able to get more of the vitamins and minerals. And it's also a sour, so our stomach is sour, so it's going to support the pH of the stomach when we eat it. And sour helps. It's very liver specific, so it's going to kind of get the liver going and
Mhm.
the gallbladder going, helping with digestion. And it's also just naturally delicious. And some people might say like, well, I don't like sauerkraut, but you might like ketchup, right? And that's very similar to
Mhm.
sauerkraut. I mean, it has its origins as being a ferment, but of course we've kind of changed it along the way and added sugar. But one of the main ingredients is vinegar, and vinegar is also a sour ferment, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
and then the other thing is like, let's say you were planting and you had a beautiful field and you had all this cabbage. You either can give all the cabbage away to your friends because you can only eat so much, or you can, ferment a bunch of it and then you'll have it all winter long.
Now, can you ferment leafy greens? Like, can you take your kale and your spinach and your Swiss chard? Can you take those? Can you
I
ferment
mean,
those?
pretty much ferment anything, but I will say, like, sort of sometimes, like, the softer the leaf,
Hmm.
and it might mush out a little bit more,
Right.
so
Right.
sometimes it's like, think about a pickle versus like even a zucchini. You can ferment a zucchini, but it's going to get softer and mush out, and the same thing with the green. So
Yeah.
absolutely, like, I haven't actually fermented. One thing I would say about spinach and chard is it's very high oxalate. So I don't know if I'd want to ferment that, because I don't know if where the oxalates would go. Maybe they just be more bioavailable, and
Hmm.
but Kale, yes, I put kale into ferments and
Yeah, I mentioned kale just so I know it's thicker. Yeah, I was
yeah,
thinking, especially the varieties we grow, they're thicker. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. So now also too, like, are you, you talked about like if your cilia is sort of damaged and such, is there a role there for for the you're just eating more vegetables to help build that up versus other types of, food?
Yeah, I mean, so when the cilia is damaged, probably the first thing that we want to think about is like removing whatever it is that's damaging it, because
Hmm.
the GI tract actually grows really fast. It's some of the fastest growing tissue in the body. So once we remove the obstacle or the whatever's causing the damage, it's going to regenerate. So that's kind of a good step. And then um, leafy greens are going to definitely feed the microbiome, and also protein, is a building
Hmm.
block to reestablish and rebuild our own tissues. And so, in that case, when somebody does have that, I recommend a lot of soups and broths
Okay.
and, food that is cooked down more, and even bone broths, and, because we need those amino acids as those building blocks.
Yeah. And that's also a great way to get your leafy greens into your diet too, is through soups and broths. So that's something
Absolutely.
where, yeah, last month, actually, we did a grow your greens challenge, and it was, okay, we're growing a lot of bok choy and kale and these different things because they're cool season plants. And it's, and a lot of people would say to me, I don't really eat bok choy. Like I don't, and it's interesting because when you grow it yourself, it tastes so much better. There's so much they're delicious versus it's funny because I've always thought, well, I ate bok choy, but I wasn't crazy about it. And now I'm crazy about it. I pulled off the wall and eat it raw. But that's a great leafy green to put in a soup, pretty
Yeah.
much any soup or stir fry, or even like Swiss chard as well. That's another one where people are very particular, like, I don't know if I like Swiss chard. And they kind of look at it like it's pretty, but and
Totally.
so that's a good way to kind of get it into your diet as well, as
Yeah.
through the broths and the soups.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I just want to say one thing about bok choy, because I
Yeah.
love bok choy. And I one thing I know about it too is it has that big stem, that big white stem.
Yes.
It's extremely hydrating. Yeah, you've got it right there.
I was going to say,
It's
I've got
extreme-
one growing.
yeah, that white wet stem, so it's really good for adding hydration, and that's often a big part of just the healing. Oh, look at that.
Doesn't that just look amazing? So
Uh,
the white, yeah, because it's interesting because a lot of times I'll cut off the white stem separate. And if I'm cooking it, I'll kind of cook that first
First,
before I do
yeah,
the, yeah,
that's
yeah.
what I do too. I'll cook that first, like almost like it's an onion or something, and then I'll throw the
Right.
greens in right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
but
and I
it's
guess
gorgeous. Yeah.
well, and that's an interesting thing I was going to say, because this is one of those old wives' tales, and you probably are going to be able to confirm it once and for all. And that is, when you cook your greens, um, is there a certain time limit where after a certain amount of time, like a lot of those vitamins have leached out? Is that something that we need to be aware of?
Well, so here's what I say, and
Mhm.
I might not have the science perfect, so
Yeah.
but vitamins, especially the water soluble vitamins, they're more sensitive to heat, light, and air.
Okay.
So when we cook them, if you want to make sure you still get them, you would want to do a much quicker cook, a
Yep.
shorter cook.
Mhm.
But when you're eating something that's raw, we don't have cellulase, which is an enzyme that breaks down the fiber. So we want to make sure we chew our greens really well,
Okay. Oh,
create as
good.
much surface area, so that we can access whatever's in there
Yes.
within the matrix of all that fiber that we lack the enzymes for. So we want to chew, and then so we'll get some of it. So it's and we also we give up a lot of, we don't give up, but we give to a lot of our microbiome in that case, because the microbiome is going to get nourished by that fiber we can't break down. So we call them
Yes.
prebiotics. Those are the fibers that are really good food for our microbiome. So I would say in a lot of ways, like raw is like a little more cleansing, right? Because we can't get everything from it, but we got all that good fiber. It's like the broom in the intestines. That's what this is. It's the
Yeah.
broom
Yeah.
going through the intestines. And then
Right.
when we cook them, we kind of break down some of that fiber, and we are going to be able to access a little more of the minerals in there.
Okay.
Yes, we can overcook vegetables for sure,
Yeah.
but we'll get more of the minerals. So, cooked in some ways is more nourishing, raw is more cleansing. And the question is like, what do you feel like you need? And honestly, for me, I always feel like I need both, but there might be times where I'm like, I'm just having soup with these cooked vegetables. I don't need a salad. I just need like that nourishing. But there's times, usually I like to put salad on my plate, so
Yep.
it's a little bit of both, and both are good for their own good reasons. But usually when we're cooking them, like the vitamin C is not going to be there as much. And, some things are denatured as a result of the cooking process, but the minerals are going to we'll still be able to get those.
Oh God, I love that. That is a perfect answer because and it kind of goes back to what we started with, right? With it's the whole balance. It's all about, it's balance. It's like, don't just always have salads. Have
Exactly.
soups, have broths, have stir fries, have different ways to eat your food.
Exactly.
So I love that. Your body, it's amazing how it's like the world's about like in terms of like nature's in balance, and then your body as well, which is what is so perfect about what you've been saying as well. So that's so great. Well, goodness, I want to, we could go on forever, and I want to be respectful for all the people watching now or the replay and stuff as well, because we could go on forever. But I did want to tell people about your blood sugar class that you were doing. You're taking signups and you start that on Tuesday. And I am very interested. What do you cover in that course?
So my blood sugar reset course is a class I've been teaching for since 2017, however many years that is. And it is this is going to be an online version. So it's going to be a full 3 months of really teaching you how to really honor your hormonal rhythms in the body. So yes, blood sugar is something we can relate to. At least a lot of people, like you might start seeing, your labs change or your cholesterol come up, or, or more weight around the belly. It's like, we understand that could be the beginning stages of something like diabetes, but we have our hormonal glands, all of our endocrine glands, and they are like our first responders. They are helping us to adapt to stress. And blood sugar control, learning how to really eat for blood sugar balance and understand how your entire intricate hormonal system works, with everything around like stress management to sleep, to thyroid function, to the immune system, pancreatic support and insulin, and in our adrenals, like they're all working together to establish a balance so that we are in homeostasis, right? So that like, we're both the same temperature, our blood pH is the same. When we go outside, our body revs up to keep us warm, so we're always working on this blood sugar control. And, it's to me, it's like the secret sauce of, vitality. So it's a 90-day course with, me teaching as you're implementing. And, not everybody's taking it as like, oh, I have diabetes. There's a few people, but a lot of people, it's like, wow, I want to have like optimal health. I want to keep making sure that I have what I need to age with grace.
Yes.
And like right now, Alzheimer's is being called diabetes type 3. So it's really all about creating that foundation. Like when you can have that foundation, like to me, that's you can live your best life. So that's really what I teach at the class. And we could link to my
Oh, I'd love to do that.
yeah. So anyways, but yeah, it's a really great class. I have a few people that are taking it for the third time because they're just like, I get so much out of it. It's a great reset for me. It's discounted right now. It's on sale, couple $100 off. And, so it's just a really, if I don't say so myself, it's a really great opportunity to just dive deep and to learn more about how you work, how food meets your physiology, and how to really like get the skills to, for the long haul of your life,
Well, and it sounds like preventive. Like it's interesting when you said people with diabetes take this. So the first thing I thought of is what a great preventive, in terms of what I need to be doing now. So I am, aging, correctly. And staying healthy. Very interesting. Okay. I might have to check that out for sure, because I'm very, I'm just always wanting to like, what can I do to keep?
And just, yeah, totally. And so, so it's blood sugar reset. It's awesome. I'm super excited, just getting off the ground. And then you have your plant.
Yes, our planted membership is open right now. So I know you're going to take this recording and show all your members and your people. So Would love to do that. Absolutely. So because there again, it's such a great partnership with nutrition and what you're doing in terms of what are you eating, how you're preparing that food, and we're helping you grow, and we're also helping you, consume and nourish
So
your
you're
body.
helping people grow that beautiful wall behind you.
Yes, we are. So what we've got is we've got multiple, so we've got different memberships. So we do container where you can, so a lot of people, they look at that wall and they're like, that is amazing. I'm a little intimidated because we get a lot of people that are aspiring gardeners that are really, and a lot of it is, it's the health message that's really talking to them. And so they want to be healthy, they want to be healthier, and they want to grow their own food. And, I think COVID helped, I don't say help, but really did bring a lot of this awareness, like who's touching my food and how long did it take to get to the grocery store and all of those things. And so, and it is true, when you grow your own food, in living soil, the taste is so superb, and it is more nutritious, obviously. So, it's fresh and you're cutting it and then you're preparing it and eating it. But no, but we allow people to grow in containers, or they can grow up to the wall. So that's what so a lot right now, a lot of the people that started with us in the fall now are moving up into the wall because they've got a lot of containers and they're like, okay, I don't want to they have them on stands and stuff, but like, no, I want to, and this really automates a lot of the maintenance for them because it's got an irrigation system in there and a timer. And so you're really at that point enjoying and taking care of your food and not worrying so much about the details of, oh my gosh, did I water today? And, I mean, you still have to worry about that, but, and I talk a lot about rituals, right? Your rituals of, kind of taking your cup of coffee or your tea and you're going out and you're just being in your garden and you're looking at your plants and you're seeing how their health's coming along. So yeah, so it's a lot
And
of fun.
I just want to say one last thing that you told me about your thing, which I just love, is that, you're also sending people like their soil amendment so that their soil, right,
Yeah.
stays alive and healthy. And that is, when we were first talking, I was saying, yeah, my word of the year is soil. Like, it's soil.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have to tend to our soils, like, and that's on the inside and the outside. And, if that's one thing COVID taught us with all the, hand
Mhm.
sanitizers, it's like, soil,
Right.
you know,
Right. And I remember that when we first started talking, we were talking about the inner soil and the outer soil. And that is so important, because what you're teaching them, of course, is how are you keeping your soil healthy inside? And, and I'm teaching them a lot about how do you keep that soil healthy? Yeah, as you're feeding the plants, they're taking up the nutrition, but you've got to regenerate that soil and get it, and so worms are really important. A lot of people, a lot of people who really are into this will compost is the pinnacle of that, right? And what I'm doing is I'm really trying to grow that home market. I'm going out of a lot of people that don't have the space to do that, right? Or they don't really know, or they don't want to take that on. And so that's part of what we're doing too, is, worm bins are smaller. They're a little bit more manageable. You can be learning about that process through worm bins. And we also send you things as well. So anyways, lots of options.
I
So
know, I love
very
it.
fun, very, very fun. Well, great. Well, listen, we will put a link to your class definitely in the post here so people see it. And then if you are a Planted Places member or part of our audience, absolutely, you'll get that an email with this replay and such. So, because there's a lot of great information in here. So I'm so excited about what we talked about and looking forward to doing some things with you.
Totally, me too.
Yeah. All right. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Enjoy your weekend. Okay. Bye-bye.